The meeting hall on Nexus Prime stretched for miles in every direction. Its crystal walls caught the light from 3 suns and threw rainbow patterns across the floor. Delegates from 47 different worlds sat in carefully arranged circles, each species in their own section, with their own atmosphere and gravity settings. At the center of the vast hall stood an empty chair. It had been empty for 15 years now. The nameplate in front of it read Earth in the common galactic script. But the chair itself had never been used. Ambassador Kong Min-ho sat in his office on Earth, 3,000 light-years away from the meeting. He looked at the invitation that had arrived that morning. It was the same invitation he had received every year for the past 15 years. The holographic message floated above his desk, its blue light flickering slightly. Galactic Council requests the honor of Earth's presence at the annual summit, the message said in perfect Korean. All matters of galactic importance will be discussed, including trade agreements, territorial disputes, and mutual defense pacts. Min-ho touched a button on his desk. The message disappeared with a soft pop. He had already made his decision. Just like he had made it 14 times before, Earth would not be attending. His assistant, Lee Soyan, entered the room carrying a stack of data tablets. Sir, the response to the Galactic Council? Send the usual reply, Min-ho said without looking up from his work. Earth appreciates the invitation, but must respectfully decline due to prior commitments. Soyan nodded and left the room. She had been sending the same message every year since she started working for Min-ho. She sometimes wondered what those prior commitments were, but she knew better than to ask far from Earth. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something remarkable was happening. Massive construction yards floated in the darkness of space, their lights twinkling like stars. Hundreds of workers in spacesuits moved between the skeletal frames of enormous ships. The sound of welding and cutting filled the vacuum suits. Communication systems, Captain Park Dong-yoon stood on the observation deck of Construction Yard 7, through the reinforced glass. He could see the latest battlecruiser taking shape. It was nearly finished, its hull gleaming with fresh armor plating. The ship was beautiful in the way that only weapons of war could be beautiful, deadly, and graceful at the same time. How many does that make? Asked Lieutenant Kim Guan, joining him at the window. 947 completed, Dong-yoon replied. 53 still in construction? Giwan whistled softly. 1,000 battlecruisers. The galaxy has never seen anything like it. The galaxy has never seen anything like us, Dong-yoon corrected. They think we're backward. They think we're weak. They think we're not worth their time. Are we going to prove them wrong? Dong-yoon smiled. Soon, very soon. Back on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was in session. The empty Earth chair sat in its usual place, ignored by most of the delegates. They had long since stopped expecting humans to show up. The council leader, a massive creature called Vorthox, stood at the center of the hall. His voice boomed across the chamber through universal translators. Today we discuss the human problem, he announced. Several delegates shifted in their seats. The human problem had been discussed many times before, but never with any real solution. They continue to expand, said the Altarian delegate, a being made of living crystal. 3 new colonies this year alone. They take what they want and ignore our authority. They refuse to join the galactic community, added the Centaurian representative. They accept our protection, but give nothing in return. What can we do? Asked the Draconian ambassador. They are too far away to threaten and too weak to worry about. The delegates murmured agreement. Earth was a problem, but not as serious. 1. Humans were primitive compared to the great galactic civilizations. Their technology was centuries behind. Their military was laughably small. They posed no real threat to anyone. Admiral Park Soo-min stood in the command center of defense, Station 1. Orbiting high above Earth, the station was invisible to most sensors, hidden behind advanced shielding technology that the galaxy didn't even know existed. Around her, dozens of officers monitored screens showing ship movements throughout the solar system. Admiral called Commander Omire from her station. All construction yards report ready for final phase. Excellent, Soo-min replied. In the fleet status, all ships are ready for deployment. Crews are trained and equipped. You can move on your order. Sumin nodded slowly. 15 years of preparation were about to pay off. 15 years of letting the galaxy think Earth was weak and divided. 15 years of building in secret while the rest of the galaxy argued about trade routes and border disputes. "Send word to all fleet commanders," she ordered. Operation Silent Thunder begins in 72 hours. The officers around her worked with quiet efficiency. They had been preparing for this moment for years. Every simulation had been run. Every contingency had been planned. Every detail had been checked and double-checked. On Nexus Prime, the council session continued. The delegates were discussing sanctions against Earth now. Economic pressure to force human compliance with galactic law. Military patrols, near human. Space to monitor their activities. Some even suggested a blockade of Earth's trade routes. "The humans cannot be allowed to ignore us forever," Vorthok declared. "They must learn their place in the galactic order," the delegates cheered. Finally, someone was taking a strong position on the human problem. It was time to show these upstart mammals that they could not stand apart from galactic civilization. None of them noticed the small sensor readings at the edge of the system. Tiny energy signatures that appeared and disappeared so quickly, they might have been instrument errors. The first elements of the human fleet were already moving into position. Captain Lee Seng-yoon sat on the bridge of the Battlecruiser Souls. Thunder. His ship was one of 20 that had just completed the jump to hyperspace. They were heading for Nexus Prime, but they would not arrive alone. 19 other battle groups were making similar jumps from hidden positions throughout human space. "Captain," called his tactical officer, "all ships report successful jump. We are on course for Nexus Prime." "Excellent," Sang-yoon replied. "Time to arrival." 68 hours, sir." Sang-yoon leaned back in his command chair. After 15 years of waiting, the galaxy was about to learn what humans had been doing with their time. The empty chair in the Galactic Council was about to be filled, but not in the way anyone expected. The greatest surprise in galactic history was about to begin. The morning sun cast long shadows across the council chamber as delegates from 47 worlds gathered for another day of discussion. The empty Earth chair sat in its usual place, a constant reminder of humanity's stubborn independence. Delegates had learned to ignore it. Today it seemed to draw more attention than usual. Secretary General Vorthok called the session to order with his usual formality. His massive form towered over the other delegates, his thick shell gleaming. "Under the chamber's lights, honored representatives," he began, "we have important matters to discuss today." The first item on the agenda was trade disputes between the Rigel colonies and the Centauri Mining Consortium. The debate was heated but routine. Both sides presented their arguments while the other delegates listened with varying degrees of interest. This was the kind of discussion that had filled council sessions for decades. But as the morning wore on, attention kept returning to the human question. The Valerian delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, finally brought up what many were thinking. "The human expansion continues," the Valerian said, its voice like singing crystals. "They have established 3 new colonies in the past year alone, all without council approval or oversight." The Altarian representative nodded its crystalline. "Had they ignore our authority completely, they take what they want and give nothing in return." "What authority?" asked the small delegate from the Tau Ceti system. "They never agreed to our jurisdiction. They never signed the Galactic Charter." "That is precisely the problem," boomed the Draconian ambassador, his golden scales catching the light. "They benefit from our protection, use our trade routes, and enjoy the security we provide, yet they refuse to participate in the system that makes it all possible." Secretary General Vorthok raised one massive claw for silence. "The human situation has been discussed many times before. They are a young species, isolated and primitive. Perhaps patience is the best approach." "Patience?" The Centaurian delegate's silver skin flushed darker. "How much patience should we show? They have been contacted for 20 years. They have been invited to join us for 15. At what point does patience become weakness?" The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for economic sanctions. Others suggested military pressure. A few even proposed a complete blockade of human space until they agreed to join the galactic community. What none of them knew was that their words were being carefully recorded and analyzed. Hidden sensors throughout the chamber transmitted every word back to Earth, where teams of linguists and strategists studied every nuance of the alien discussions. In a secure facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Director Nam Hoon reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The underground complex was one of dozens scattered across Earth, all connected by quantum communication networks that the galaxy's best scientists could not detect. "They're getting more aggressive," reported analyst Kim Taeyeon, studying the translated transcripts. "The Centaurians are pushing hard for sanctions. The Draconians want a military response." "Let them push," Hoon replied calmly. "Every threat. They make every sanction they propose, every military action they consider. It all justifies what we are about to do." The intelligence reports showed more than just council discussions. Human agents embedded throughout galactic society had been gathering information for years. They knew the exact strength of every major fleet. They understood the political divisions between species. They had mapped every trade route and military installation in known space. Most importantly, they knew that the galaxy's military forces were scattered and unprepared. The great powers had grown complacent during decades of peace. Their fleets were designed for policing actions and border disputes, not for facing a unified enemy with superior technology. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, the final preparations were underway. Captain Yoon Minji supervised the loading of the last supply containers onto her ship, Bizen's Fury. Around her, hundreds of similar vessels prepared for deployment. "All systems check complete," reported Chief Engineer Park Ji-hoon. "We are ready for operation?" "Excellent," Minji replied. "Send word to Admiral Park Soo-min. Battle Group Beta is ready for deployment." Similar reports were coming in from across the solar system. 20 battle groups, each consisting of 50 battlecruisers, were ready to move. The largest fleet in human history was about to leave Earth's solar system for the first time, back on Nexus Prime. The council session had moved into closed deliberations. The general debate was over, and now the real decisions were being made. The chamber had been cleared of observers, and security screens prevented any outside surveillance. "The time for patience is over," declared the Altarian delegate. "The humans must be brought into line." "I agree," said the Centaurian representative, "but how? They are 3,000 light-years away. Our nearest fleet base is in the Vega system, almost as far from Earth as we are." "We could send a diplomatic mission," suggested the Regalian ambassador. "A show of force to demonstrate our seriousness." "A show of force?" The Draconian delegate's scales shifted to a deeper red. "With what? The humans have no respect for our authority. They will ignore a diplomatic mission just as they ignore our invitations." Secretary General Vorthok had been listening to the debate with growing frustration. The human problem was becoming more serious with each passing year, but the council seemed incapable of decisive action. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time to consider more direct measures." The chamber fell silent. Direct measures meant military action. In the history of the Galactic Council, military force had been used only 3 times. And only against species that posed a direct threat to galactic security. The humans pose no military threat, the Tau Ceti delegate pointed out. Their technology is primitive. Their fleet is small. They are no danger to anyone. "They are a danger to our authority," the Altarian replied. "If we allow one species to ignore the Council, others will follow. The entire galactic order could collapse." The debate continued through the afternoon. Some delegates argued for caution, others for immediate action. But gradually, a consensus began to emerge. Something had to be done about the human problem. What they did not know was that the human problem was about to solve itself in a way they could never have imagined. Captain Lee Dong-yoon stood on the bridge of the Soul's Thunder, watching the hyperspace countdown timer. In 12 hours, his battle group would make the jump to Nexus Prime. 19 other battle groups would jump at the same time from different positions. All ships report ready, Captain, announced his communications officer. Excellent, Dong-Yun, replied. Send confirmation to Fleet Command. We're ready to proceed. The message traveled instantly through quantum channels to Admiral Park Suman's command center. Similar confirmations were arriving from all 20 battle group commanders. The fleet was ready. The moment they had prepared for was at hand. Ships, Suman broadcast to the entire fleet, Operation Silent Thunder is authorized. Execute in 11 hours and 37 minutes. The greatest military operation in human history was about to begin. The galaxy was about to learn that their assessment of human capabilities was not just wrong, it was catastrophically wrong. The empty chair in the Galactic Council was about to be filled, but not by a humble petitioner seeking membership. It would be filled by the representative of a species that had earned its place through strength, patience, and the courage to act when the moment was right. The morning of the 16th day started like any other on Nexus Prime. The three suns rose in sequence, casting their rainbow light across the crystal spires of the capital city. In the great council chamber, delegates began arriving for another day of routine discussion. The empty Earth chair sat in its usual place, ignored by most of the representatives. They had grown so accustomed to its emptiness that few even noticed it anymore. Today was supposed to be about trade regulations and mining rights in the outer systems. Admiral Cho Murray monitored the long-range sensors from her station aboard the orbital defense platform. The platform was one of 12 that protected Nexus Prime, each armed with enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. It was routine work, watching for the occasional pirate ship or unauthorized trader. Admiral called sensor operator Kim Juan. I'm getting some unusual readings on the outer perimeter. Murray frowned and moved to the sensor station. The display showed the normal traffic patterns around Nexus Prime supply ships, diplomatic vessels, and the occasional tourist transport. But there were also some strange energy signatures at the very edge of sensor range. Probably just solar interference, she said. The star storms had been active this week. As she watched, the energy signatures grew stronger, and they were moving in a pattern that looked almost like a formation. Run a full spectrum analysis, she ordered, and alert the other platforms. In the council chamber, Secretary General Vorthok was calling the session to order. The delegates settled into their seats, preparing for another day of tedious debate. The agenda was full of minor issues, trade disputes, territorial boundaries, and administrative matters. Before we begin, Vorthok announced, I want to address the human situation one more time. Several delegates groaned. The human problem had been discussed endlessly without any real solution. Most were tired of talking about it. The Council has decided, Vorthok continued, to send a formal ultimatum to Earth. They will join the galactic community within 1 standard year, or face economic sanctions. The Altarian delegate's crystal form flickered with approval. Is about time. These humans cannot be allowed to ignore us forever. What if they refuse? Asked the Centaurian representative. Then we will consider military action. Vorthok replied grimly. The debate that followed was heated but predictable. Some delegates supported the ultimatum, others argued for more patience. None of them noticed the urgent messages beginning to flood the communication channels from the orbital defense platforms. Admiral Cho Murray stared at her sensor displays in disbelief. The energy signatures were no longer at the edge of sensor range. They were everywhere, surrounding Nexus Prime in a perfect sphere, and they were massive. How many? She demanded. Counting now, replied Kim Juan, her voice tight with stress. Initial count shows over 900 large contacts, all showing military configurations. 900? Murray's voice cracked. That's impossible. Oh. No fleet that large has ever been assembled. Admiral called another operator. The ships are beginning to decloak. The main display shifted to show visual sensors. What appeared on screens sent shockwaves through the orbital defense center. Ship after ship materialized out of apparently empty space, their hulls gleaming with an unfamiliar blue-white energy pattern. They were beautiful in a deadly way. Each ship was roughly the same size as a galactic battlecruiser, but their design was unlike anything in the known databases. Their hulls were smooth and predatory, like metal sharks swimming through space. Admiral Kim Juwan's voice was barely a whisper. Final count shows exactly 1,000 vessels, all in perfect formation. Murray activated the emergency communication system. All stations. This is Defense Command. We have a code red situation. Unknown fleet of 1,000 vessels has appeared in the system. The message reached the council chamber just as the draconian delegate was explaining why humans could not be trusted. The emergency alert interrupted his speech, and the chamber's main display activated to show the orbital defense feed. The sight that greeted the delegates was beyond their worst nightmares. 1,000 warships hung in space around their world, close enough to be seen, but far enough to avoid immediate attack. The perfect formation spoke of discipline and planning that none of them had thought possible. Impossible, breathed the Eltarian delegate. Human technology is centuries behind ours. Apparently not, replied the Centaurian representative, his silver skin pale with shock. Secretary General Vorthok's massive form trembled with rage and fear. How did they build so many ships without our knowledge? Our intelligence networks? Monitor all major construction projects. The answer came from an unexpected source. The chamber's communication system crackled to life, and a clear female voice filled the hall. Honored delegates, the voice said in perfect galactic standard. This is Admiral Park Soo-min of the Earth Defense Force. I believe we have some things to discuss. The main display shifted to show the bridge of one of the human ships. Admiral Park Soo-min stood at the center, her bearing calm and confident. Her uniform was simple but elegant, and her expression showed no trace of hostility, only determination. For 15 years, she continued, you have invited us to your summits. For 15 years, we have declined to attend. This was not arrogance or ignorance, it was necessity. The delegates sat in stunned silence. The human fleet commander was speaking to them as an equal, not as a supplicant seeking admission to their exclusive club. We needed time to prepare, Admiral Soo-min explained. Time to build the ships you see around you. Time to develop the technology that makes them possible. Time to train the crews that operate them. What do you want? Secretary General Vorthok's voice boomed across the chamber. What we have always wanted, Soo-min replied. To be treated as equals. To have our voice heard in galactic affairs. Ensure that decisions affecting humanity are made with human input. The draconian delegate's scales had shifted to deep red. You threaten us with your warships and speak of equality? I threaten no one, Soo-min said calmly. These ships are here as a diplomatic escort, but they are also here to demonstrate that Earth is no longer the weak, backward world you have dismissed for so long. Captain Nam Hoon-yeon watched the proceedings from the bridge of the Daegu's Revenge. His ship was part of Battle Group 5, positioned to cover the diplomatic zone around Nexus Prime. The alien defense fleet was scrambling to respond, but their movements were panicked and uncoordinated.
Captain,
reported his tactical officer. Enemy defense platforms are powering up weapons. 47 ships moving to intercept, acknowledged, Hayoung replied. All ships maintain position. Do not fire unless fired upon. The local defense fleet was impressive by galactic standards. Ships from 12 different species formed a defensive line between the planet and the human armada. Their combined firepower could destroy a small moon, but facing 1,000 battlecruisers, they looked almost insignificant. Admiral Soo-min's image continued to dominate the council chamber's display. We have been monitoring your discussions about us, she said. We know about the proposed sanctions, we know about the military assessments, we know about the plans to force our compliance. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Every delegate was thinking the same thing. How much did the humans know? How long had they been listening? That intelligence gathering, Soo-min continued, was also necessary. We needed to understand the galaxy we would be joining. We needed to know who our friends and enemies would be. And what have you concluded? Asked the Valerian delegate, its energy form flickering with nervous energy. Admiral Soo-min's slight smile was visible even through the holographic transmission. We have concluded that the galaxy needs us more than we need the galaxy. Your fleets are scattered and weak. Your technology has stagnated. Your leadership is divided and ineffective. The insult hung in the air like a physical blow. These primitives were lecturing the greatest civilizations in the galaxy about weakness and inefficiency. We offer partnership, Sumin continued, but we will not beg for it. We will not submit to your authority or accept your judgment of our actions. We are here as equals, or we are not here at all. The demonstration was about to begin. Captain Lee Sang-yoon received the signal from Fleet Command. All ships prepare. For Formation Alpha 7. Let's show them what we can do. The human fleet began to move. The human fleet began to move with a precision that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Each battlecruiser accelerated smoothly from its position, creating flowing patterns of light against the stars. The ships moved like dancers, their formations shifting and changing in ways that served no obvious tactical purpose. Captain Song Minji watched from the bridge of the Changwon's blade as her battle group executed a complex spiral maneuver. The ships around her moved, in perfect synchronization, their engines producing energy readings that should have been impossible. Tactical display shows enemy fleet is breaking formation, reported her sensor operator. They appear to be panicking. Understandable, Mingi replied. They have never seen ships move like this. The Galactic Defense Fleet was indeed in chaos. Admiral Zenthos of the Centaurian fleet tried to maintain order, but his ships were designed for conventional warfare. They could not match the speed and agility of the human vessels. All ships maintain defensive perimeter, he ordered. But his voice carried a note of desperation. In the council chamber, the delegates watched in horrified fascination as the human fleet demonstrated capabilities that rewrote the rules of space. Combat. Ships that should have taken minutes to change course were turning instantly. Vessels that should have been limited by physics were moving in impossible directions. Their propulsion systems, whispered the Altarian delegate. They are not using conventional drives. Then what are they using? Demanded Secretary General Vorth. The answer came from Admiral Park Soo-min, whose image still dominated the chambers. Display, we call it quantum displacement drive. It allows us to manipulate space-time itself. Distance becomes irrelevant. Inertia becomes a choice rather than a limitation. The demonstration continued for 20 minutes. The human fleet moved through formations that spelled out words in the galactic script, messages of peace written in the language of war. They formed geometric patterns that would have been impossible for any known technology to achieve. But the real demonstration was yet to come. All ships, Admiral Soo-min broadcast to her fleet, prepare for defensive demonstration. Target the asteroid field in Sector 7. The nearby asteroid field contained thousands of rocks, from small boulders to planetoids the size of cities. It was a perfect testing ground for what the humans were about to reveal. Captain Ko Jaeon commanded the Seonum's Wrath, one of the ships designated for the demonstration. His crew had trained for this moment for years, but the reality was still breathtaking. Shields to maximum, he ordered. Prepare for incoming fire. The Galactic Defense Fleet, desperate to prove they were not completely outmatched, opened fire. On the human ships, energy beams that could vaporize mountains lanced across space, converging on the nearest human vessels. What happened next sent shockwaves through every military academy in the galaxy. The human shields not only absorbed the incoming fire, they redirected it. The energy beams curved around the human ships like water around a stone, then shot outward toward the asteroid field. The asteroids exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Rocks that had existed for billions of years were reduced to cosmic dust in seconds. But the human ships remained untouched, their shields glowing with absorbed energy. Impossible, breathed the draconian delegate. They just absorbed the combined firepower of 47 warships. Not absorbed, corrected Admiral Soo-min. Redirected. Our defensive systems convert incoming energy into outgoing force. The more you attack us, the more powerful we become. The demonstration had proven its point. The human fleet was not just large, it was technologically superior in every way that mattered. Their ships were faster, more maneuverable, and apparently invulnerable to conventional weapons. Captain Yoon Taijin monitored the alien. Fleet's reaction from his position aboard the Suon's might. The enemy ships had stopped firing and were pulling back to a safer distance. Their formation was ragged, and their movements uncertain. "They are requesting reinforcements," reported his communications officer. "Emergency broadcasts going out to all major fleet bases." "Let them come," Taijin replied. "The more they bring, the more impressive our response will be." The reinforcements began arriving within hours. Ships from across the galaxy made emergency jumps to Nexus Prime, their crews believing they were responding to an invasion. What they found was a standoff that would reshape galactic politics forever. Admiral Zephyros of the Andromedan Fleet was the first to arrive. His massive dreadnought, the Stellar Dominator, was twice the size of any human vessel. Behind him came ships from 16 different species, hastily assembled from patrol duties and training exercises. "Human fleet," Zephyros broadcast. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we will consider terms." The response came not from Admiral Sumin, but from Captain Bei Sunyo of the Soul's Vengeance. His ship was one of the newest in the fleet, equipped with the most advanced systems Earth had developed. "Admiral Zephyros," he replied calmly, "you are neither outnumbering nor outgunning us. You are simply unprepared for what you are facing." To prove his point, Captain Bay ordered his ship to perform a maneuver that defied every law of physics. The galaxy understood. The Soul's Vengeance accelerated to impossible speeds, then stopped instantly. It moved sideways without turning, then disappeared entirely before reappearing on the opposite side of the system. "Teleportation," gasped the Valerian delegate. "They have mastered teleportation technology." "Not teleportation," Admiral Suman corrected. "Quantum tunneling. We can move through space-time itself, bypassing the normal restrictions of distance." In time, the reinforcement fleet tried to respond, but their movements were clumsy compared to the human vessels. Ships designed for conventional warfare could not match opponents, who could appear and disappear at will, but the humans had not come to fight. They had come to negotiate from a position of strength. Honored delegates Admiral Sumin addressed the Council directly. "We have demonstrated our capabilities. We have shown that we are not the primitive species you believed us to be. Now we offer you a choice." The chamber fell silent. Every delegate knew that this moment would determine the future of galactic civilization. "You can accept us as equals," Suman continued. "Full partners in the galactic community with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Or you can continue to treat us as outsiders and primitives. And if we choose the second option," Secretary General Vorthak's voice carried a note of challenge, "then we will return to Earth and continue our expansion without your permission or oversight. We will build our own trade networks, establish our own colonies, and defend our own interests. The galaxy is large enough for both of us, but it is not large enough for us to remain subordinate to your authority." The threat was clear, but not aggressive. The humans were not demanding conquest or submission. They were simply stating that they would no longer be ignored or dismissed. Captain Nam Hun-yong watched the proceedings from his command position. Around him, his crew waited patiently for orders. They had trained for combat, but they hoped for diplomacy. "All ships," came the order from Admiral Sumin, "maintain position and await further instructions. We are here to make friends, not enemies." Standoff continued as the galaxy's leaders struggled to process what they had witnessed. The balance of power had shifted in a single day, and no one was sure what would happen next. But one thing was certain: the age of human isolation was over. The question now was whether the galaxy would welcome them as partners or face them as rivals. The empty chair in the council chamber suddenly seemed very significant. It was no longer just a symbol of human absence. It was a symbol of human choice, and humanity had chosen to stand as equals among the stars. The standoff entered its third day with no sign of resolution. The human fleet maintained their perfect formation around Nexus Prime, while galactic leaders struggled to comprehend their new reality. Emergency sessions were called every few hours, but each meeting ended in the same deadlock. Captain No Sangun stood on the bridge of the Jinu's Pride, watching the alien fleet through his ship's sensors. The enemy vessels had grown to over 400 ships, but their movements showed increasing desperation. Supply runs were being made every 6 hours, and their formation was becoming more scattered as crews grew tired. For an extended engagement, observed Commander Shinyuna from the nearby Shinan's Thunder. Their logistics system is breaking down. We can maintain this position for months if necessary, Sang-Yun replied. Our supply lines are secure, and our resources are practically unlimited. The human fleet's endurance was another technological advantage the galaxy had not anticipated. Each battlecruiser carried enough supplies for extended operations, and their quantum displacement drives allowed instant resupply from hidden bases throughout human space in the council chamber. But the debates had become increasingly heated. The Altarian delegate's crystal form flickered with agitation as it spoke. We cannot allow ourselves to be intimidated by these primitives. They have 1,000 ships, but we have the combined fleets of 47 worlds, scattered across the galaxy, the Centaurian representative pointed out. It would take weeks to assemble them all in one place. Even then, their technology appears to be superior to ours. Secretary General Vorthok's massive form dominated the center of the chamber. His voice carried the weight of centuries of galactic authority. The question is not whether we can defeat them militarily. The question is whether we should try. The draconian delegate's scales had remained deep red since the human fleet's arrival. They have violated every principle of galactic law. They have threatened our sovereignty. They must be stopped. Have they threatened us? Asked the small representative from the Tau Ceti system. They have made no demands except to be treated. As equals, they have fired no shots, except in demonstration. Their very presence is a threat, the Altarian replied. They have shown that our defensive systems are inadequate. They have proven that our military doctrine is obsolete. The debate continued in circles, but gradually a new voice began to emerge. The Ethereal Collective's delegate was young by galactic standards, representing a species that had only recently joined the galactic community. Honored colleagues, the Ethereal said, its translucent form shimmering with nervous energy. Perhaps we are approaching this from the wrong perspective. The humans are not our enemies. They are showing us what we could become. The chamber fell. Silent. The young delegate had dared to say what many were thinking, but none wanted to admit. What do you mean? Asked the Valerian representative. Look at what they have accomplished, the Ethereal continued. In 15 years, they have developed technology that surpasses our greatest achievements. They have built a fleet that makes our combined forces seem primitive. They have done this while maintaining their independence and their principles. They have done this in secret, the Altarian delegate protested. They have deceived us. They have protected themselves. The Ethereal corrected. Can we blame them? We have spent 15 years dismissing them as primitives while planning to force them into submission. Would we have allowed them to build this fleet if we had known about it? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Every delegate knew. The answer: galactic powers would never have permitted Earth to develop such capabilities. Meanwhile, in the human fleet, Captain Lee Sunhai monitored the alien communications from her position aboard the Ulsan's Thunder. The ship's advanced listening systems could intercept and decode most galactic transmissions, giving the humans valuable intelligence about their opponents' intentions. The younger species are beginning to question their leadership, she reported to Admiral Park Sumin. The Ethereal Collective is speaking in our favor. Several minor powers are expressing doubts about military action. Good, Sumin replied from her command ship. Division in their ranks is exactly what we need. Keep monitoring and report any significant changes. The intelligence reports showed more than just political divisions. The Galactic Fleet was struggling with practical problems. Their ships were designed for short patrols and quick strikes, not extended blockades. Crew fatigue was becoming a serious issue. Several vessels had already withdrawn for emergency maintenance. Captain Park Ji-hoon watched the enemy fleet's deteriorating condition from the Gwangju's hammer. His tactical analysis showed multiple weaknesses in their formation. If combat became necessary, the human fleet could exploit these gaps to devastating effect. But Admiral Sumin made it clear that violence was the last resort. The humans had come to negotiate, not to conquer. All ships, she broadcast to the fleet, maintain defensive positions. Do not respond to provocations. We are here to demonstrate strength, not to start a war. The order was needed because tensions were rising. Some of the alien ships had begun making aggressive maneuvers, testing human responses. Few had even locked weapons on human vessels, though none had fired. In the council chamber, the debate had reached a crucial point. Secretary General Vorthok called for a formal vote on the human question. The options were simple: negotiate with Earth as equals, or attempt to force their submission through military action. Before we vote, the ethereal delegate requested, "I would like to share some information that may influence your decision." The young representative activated a holographic display showing detailed analysis of the human fleet. The data had been compiled by the ethereal collective's best scientists and military advisors. Our analysis shows that the human fleet is not just numerically superior, the ethereal explained. Their technology represents a quantum leap beyond our current capabilities. Their ships are faster, more maneuverable, and better defended than anything in our fleets. The display showed comparative data that made uncomfortable reading. Human vessels could accelerate at rates that would crush most galactic species. Their weapons could penetrate any known armor. Their shields could absorb energy levels that would overload conventional systems. More importantly, the ethereal continued, this fleet represents only a fraction of human capabilities. Our intelligence suggests they have construction facilities that could produce thousands more ships if threatened. The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. If the 1,000 battlecruisers were just the beginning, then military action against Earth would be suicide. "How do you know this?" demanded the draconian delegate. "Because we asked them," the ethereal replied simply. "We sent a diplomatic message requesting information." They were surprisingly forthcoming about their capabilities. The admission that one of the galactic powers had been conducting secret negotiations with the humans caused an uproar. Delegates accused each other of betrayal and conspiracy. The unity of the Galactic Alliance was beginning to crack. Captain Cho Taeyeon observed the chaos from his position aboard the Inshan's Wrath. The alien fleet was showing signs of serious disorganization. Ships from different species were pulling back from joint formations, creating gaps in their defensive line. "Admiral," he reported to Fleet Command, "enemy cohesion is breaking down. Multiple species are withdrawing to separate." "Positions," acknowledged. Admiral Sumin replied. "Continue monitoring, but do not exploit their weakness. We want them to see that we could take advantage, but choose not to." The restraint shown by the human fleet was perhaps their most powerful weapon. They could have attacked at any time during the past 3 days, but they had chosen to wait. Message was clear: they were strong enough to destroy their enemies, but wise enough to seek peace as the 4th day began. A breakthrough finally came from an unexpected source. The youngest member of the Galactic Council stood to address the assembly with a proposal that would change everything. "Honored delegates," the ethereal representative said, "I propose we do what we should have done 15 years ago. I propose we invite the humans to join us as full partners, with all the rights and responsibilities that position entails." The vote that followed was closer than anyone expected, 24 in favor, 23 against. But it was enough to change the course of galactic history. Secretary General Vorthok's voice carried a humility that had been absent from previous communications when he contacted Admiral Park Soo-min directly. "Admiral," he said, "the Galactic Council formally requests the honor of your presence at an emergency session. We wish to discuss terms for Earth's full membership in the galactic community." The response came after a carefully calculated pause. "Secretary General, we accept your invitation. However, we will be arriving with our full diplomatic escort." The sight of 1,000 battlecruisers escorting a single diplomatic shuttle to the planet's surface would become one of the most iconic images in galactic history. The age of human isolation was ending. The age of human partnership was about to begin. The diplomatic shuttle descended through Nexus Prime's atmosphere with an escort that defied imagination. 1,000 battlecruisers maintained perfect formation in the upper atmosphere, their hulls gleaming like stars against the purple sky. The sight was visible from every continent on the planet, a reminder that everything had changed. Ambassador Kong Minho sat calmly in the shuttle's passenger compartment, reviewing his notes one final time. After 15 years of politely declining invitations, he was finally going to address the Galactic Council. But he would not be going as a supplicant seeking membership. He would be going as the representative of a power that had earned its place among the stars. Captain Lee Sunhai piloted the shuttle with steady hands, her eyes constantly monitoring the tactical displays. Despite the diplomatic nature of their mission, she remained alert for any sign of treachery. The human fleet above them was ready to respond instantly if anything went wrong. Approaching the council building, she reported, "All systems normal." The welcoming committee appears to be genuine. Through the viewport, they could see the massive crystal structure that housed the Galactic Council. Hundreds of alien dignitaries had gathered to witness this historic moment. Many had traveled from across the galaxy specifically to see that humans who had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. The shuttle landed on a designated platform outside the council chamber. As the doors opened, Ambassador Minho stepped out flanked by his security detail. Captain Park Jungwon and Commander Kim Do-yeon moved with professional alertness, their eyes scanning for threats. The reception was formal but respectful. Secretary General Vorthok himself had come to greet the human delegation, his massive form dwarfing the humans around him. But his voice carried none of the arrogance that had marked previous communications. "Ambassador Minho," he said through his translator, "welcome to Nexus Prime. The Council is honored by your presence." "The honor is mutual," Minho replied diplomatically. "We look forward to productive discussions." The procession to the council chamber drew crowds of curious aliens. Many had never seen humans in person, and they watched with fascination as the delegation passed. The humans walked with quiet confidence, their bearing suggesting strength without aggression. Inside the chamber, the sight that greeted them was remarkable. The empty chair that had symbolized human absence for 15 years had been replaced with a new seat, positioned at the same level as the other major powers. The message was clear. Earth would be treated as an equal. As Ambassador Minho took his seat, he looked around the chamber with interest. These were the beings who had dismissed humanity for so long, who had planned to force Earth's submission through sanctions and military pressure. Now they watched him with a mixture of respect and fear. "Honored delegates," Secretary General Vorthok began. "We gather today to welcome a new member to our community. The representative of Earth has come to discuss humanity's place in the galactic order." The words were carefully chosen. Earth was not being admitted to the council. They were being welcomed as partners. The distinction was important to both sides. Ambassador Minho stood to address the assembly. His voice was calm and measured, carrying the weight of 15 years of preparation. "Fellow representatives," he began, "we appreciate your patience. While we prepared for this moment, Earth's absence from these chambers was not a rejection of galactic civilization, but a recognition that we were not yet ready to participate as equals." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The implication was clear. The humans had been building strength while the galaxy assumed they were weak. "We come here today not seeking your approval or permission," Minho continued, "but offering partnership. We bring technology that can benefit all civilized worlds. We offer protection to those who need it. We propose cooperation in the face of common challenges." The Altarian delegate's crystal form flickered with curiosity. "What kind of technology are you offering?" "Medical advances that can extend lifespans across species barriers. Energy systems that are clean and virtually unlimited. Transportation methods that make current FTL drives look primitive.
8.
We have learned much during our years of isolation." The chamber buzzed with interest. If the humans were willing to share their technological advantages, the benefits to galactic civilization would be enormous. But the draconian delegate remained skeptical. "And what do you want in return?"
"Recognition of our sovereignty."
Minho replied. "The right to expand and explore without interference. Equal voice in decisions that affect galactic security and trade. The same rights and responsibilities that every member of this council enjoys." The negotiations that followed lasted for hours. Details were discussed, boundaries were defined, and protocols were established. The humans proved to be skilled negotiators, offering generous terms while protecting their core interests. Captain Cho Murray monitored the proceedings from her position aboard the Soul's Thunder. The human fleet maintained their formation in orbit, a constant reminder of the new reality. But there had been no hostile movements from the galactic forces, and the mood seemed to be shifting toward acceptance. "Admiral," she reported to Fleet Command, "negotiations appear to be progressing well. No signs of military preparation from local forces." "Acknowledged," Admiral Park Sumine replied. "Continue monitoring, but prepare for withdrawal. If these talks succeed, we will not need to maintain our full presence here." The breakthrough came when the Ethereal Collective's delegate proposed a formal treaty. The document would recognize Earth as a sovereign power with full rights in galactic affairs. In return, humanity would share selected technologies and contribute to galactic defense efforts. The vote was unanimous. Even the draconian delegate, who had opposed the humans from the beginning, recognized that cooperation was preferable to conflict. Ambassador Minho signed the treaty with a pen made from metal forged in Earth's earliest space stations. The symbolism was deliberate. Humanity's journey to the stars had been long and difficult, but it had led to this moment. "Fellow representatives," he said, as he completed the signature, "Earth is honored to join this community. We look forward to working together for the prosperity and security of all civilized worlds." The celebration that followed was subdued but genuine. Delegates who had viewed humans as primitives now approached them with respect and curiosity. Trade agreements were discussed, scientific exchanges were proposed, military cooperation was planned. Captain Lee Dong-yoon watched from his ship as the human fleet began to withdraw. The demonstration of strength had served its purpose. Now, it was time for the more subtle work of diplomacy and partnership. "All ships," Admiral Sumin broadcast to the fleet, "mission accomplished. Begin withdrawal to assigned positions." The 1,000 battlecruisers moved away from Nexus Prime in the same perfect formation they had arrived in. But they did not return to Earth. Instead, they took positions throughout human space, ready to protect the expanding colonies and trade routes that would mark humanity's new role in galactic affairs. Within months, the first joint human-alien research stations were established. Within a year, human technology was revolutionizing galactic medicine and energy production. Within 5 years, human ships were patrolling trade routes alongside vessels from dozens of other species. The transformation was remarkable. The galaxy that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now looked to Earth for leadership in technology and military innovation. The species that had planned to force human submission now sought human alliance and protection. Admiral Park Sumine stood in the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital station. Watching as alien ships arrived daily for trade and diplomatic missions, the isolation was over. The age of human partnership had begun. "Admiral," her aide reported, "the Galactic Council has voted to offer you the position of Secretary General. The term would begin next year." Sumin smiled as she watched a Centaurian trade vessel dock with the station. "Tell them I am honored by the offer. I'll consider it carefully." The empty chair in the Galactic Council had been filled, but more than that, it had been transformed. Humanity had not just joined galactic civilization, they had begun to lead. The galaxy would never be the same. And neither would humanity. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, full of possibilities that had been unimaginable. When the first invitation to the Galactic Summit had arrived 15 years before, Earth had indeed skipped every summit, but they had used that time wisely. They had arrived not as subjects, but as sovereigns. Not as followers, but as leaders. Not as primitives seeking acceptance, but as partners offering strength, the 1,000. Battlecruisers had delivered their message. It was time to build the future they had fought to secure.